We are being propelled into Fallen Angel by one of the best title sequences ever in a film noir. Great title sequences being a specialty of director Otto Preminger. And you are also getting a particularly vigorous score by composer David Raxon. And if those names are all familiar from Laura, that's because this movie is Fox's follow-up to the hugely successful Laura, reuniting many of the same cast and crew. A number of the technical names you're seeing here on the screen, with the exception of film editor Harry Reynolds, also worked on Laura the year before this film was made. The book that this movie is based on is credited to Marty Holland, but it's worth noting that that's actually Mary Holland. It's actually a woman who wrote the original novel. And this wonderful shot opening the film, where you will see Otto Preminger's incredibly supple camera work. He probably was the best director of the camera of anyone in the 1940s in Hollywood. He uses this fabulous shot to introduce the star of the film, Dana Andrews. And I am thrilled that joining me for this commentary is Dana Andrews' daughter, Susan, who will be giving us some insights about her father as we go along. Hi, Susan.
Hi, Eddie.
I'm really glad you're able to join us. It's quite coincidental to learn that you actually live in San Francisco, my hometown, and that you're able to come down and do this with me. It's fantastic. And, of course, the Eddie that she refers to is me, Eddie Muller, author of several books on film noir, Dark City Dames, The Art of Noir, several noir-tinged novels. And if you've seen enough of these Fox DVDs by now, you know who I am, and that I am the president and founder of the Film Noir Foundation, dedicated to rescuing and restoring lost noir films. And you are now in the thick of a true film noir, and the atmosphere and ambiance of this Walton, California, which I believe, Susan, you would agree that this is probably Pismo Beach or somewhere around there.
We're thinking Pismo Beach.
Yeah, I think that's just about right. And all hands on deck in this opening scene in Pop's Diner, as all of the major supporting characters in this film are introduced in one beautiful set piece. It is just wonderfully directed by Preminger. This is Charles Bickford playing Judd, the cop. This is Bruce Cabot as the jukebox salesman, Percy Kilbride as Pop behind the counter. And, of course, everyone is referring to Stella, the focal point of this scene. And you will see Stella's introduction coming up shortly as a beautiful bit of business. But you really do want to pay attention to how brilliantly Preminger introduces all these characters with a very fluid camera.
What else you want on that hamburger? The whole state of California? What's the population? I'll fix you something.
Your father had a way with this kind of dialogue in these movies, didn't he?
He's great. He's so cool.
He was the perfect guy for noir. He had a very tough guy demeanor and a way to clip off this dialogue that was just brilliant. And, of course, here is Linda Darnell.
What an entrance.
It's a fabulous entrance, and not only because she is such a knockout, but because it's such beautiful visual shorthand for her character.
Okay. I'm back.
Well, here you are, young.
So clearly, Stella had tried to make her break from this small town, and she's all dressed up with no place to go. And the rubbing of the feet is wonderfully evocative. As you will learn later, she was dumped by this guy and had to hitchhike back to the diner. And man, is she a tough as nails broad in this film.
The room's waiting for you. I prayed him not to touch a thing. You wanted it like that, didn't you?
Over whom all these men are obsessed.
Come back to your job.
Or soon to be.
Right.
Just like it was, except you'd never been away. That's just how it'll be. After a long rest, you sure look run out.
So what?
I mentioned that this film was a follow-up to Laura, and its reputation has actually suffered in comparison over the years, which is unfair in a way because there are many similarities between the films thematically, and as I mentioned in the production crew, it made it. But I think Fallen Angel is a better film than its sort of middling critical reputation would have you believe, and it is also more of a true noir than Laura. And throughout, you are going to see examples, like I said, of what I think is the most graceful and supple direction of the era, courtesy of Otto Preminger. It's interesting. You noted earlier, Susan, when we were talking, that Eric Stanton's arrival in town on the bus does sort of mirror your father's own arrival in Hollywood. Is that right?
He hitchhiked to Hollywood from Texas, where he was running away from a relationship with the daughter of the town department store owner, and he was too poor and not high class enough for this person's daughter who sent her on a trip around the world. He showed them.
This is a noir story, yeah, no kidding.
And he hitchhiked to Hollywood with a fedora and a camel's hair coat. I don't know where he got it, but that's the story. And he proceeded to work about 7 years. It wasn't an overnight success. Worked hard. Got rid of his Texas accent, the whole thing, and
That's interesting. And he drove a bus, did he not, at one point?
He drove a bus. He kept bees. He worked as an usher in a movie theater. He was an accountant. I used to be amazed at the different jobs that he had, and ultimately he worked in a gas station. That was the last job before his job as an actor.
But
The gas station owner paid for his opera lessons and his Pasadena Playhouse tuition based on his charm, because he didn't have any collateral except what you see on the screen right now.
Wow. This is just a great scene. These two grifters.
Check out the
getting
elbow.
together.
If you look at Dana Andrews' movies, and he's drinking a lot in the movies, and, well, a lot of you probably know he was drinking outside of the movies a lot of the time, too. But that elbow is great. He always drinks with that elbow out.
It's the Dana Andrews trademark.
Oh, wait a minute. Consult the spirit of my friend the professor. What's he say?
I know what the manager says. One more guess, $1 more.
This is Olin Howland is the fella in the scene with him here who does just a great job.
Don't take your shoes off. I'm enough to aggravate me.
Don't worry. I'll get you out of it.
What with? You're broke. I've got to have $15 by noon tomorrow, or lose the haul downstairs in my deposit. Besides being kicked out of here and my luggage held.
What about the professor's spooks?
This is really
I love that
yeah.
business with the tie.
Yeah, the thing with the tie is just brilliant. He's just so disdainful, and he's just making himself at home here. He's just taking the room away from this guy. He's more concerned about that spot on his tie because obviously it's the only one he has left. And the dialogue in this scene is just terrific. And I have not read the book upon which this movie is based, so I really don't know to whom to credit the dialogue. But as we go along, I'll make a reference to the screenwriter. Who this was his first screenplay, and Otto Preminger was definitely responsible for bringing Harry Kleiner, the screenwriter, to Hollywood. And Preminger got a lot of people started in the business, including really giving, I mean, your dad had made a lot of pictures before he made Laura with Otto Preminger, but that was the big breakout movie for Dana Andrews, was Laura. And it was Preminger who was responsible for casting him in that film, because I know that Daryl Zanuck wanted to cast John Hodiak in that part, and it was Otto Preminger who held out for Dana Andrews. So There was a good union between the two of them. This is Anne Revere, who I think played the mother of every actor in Hollywood at one point or another. And there'll be a lot more to say about her as we go along. But here is the star of the picture, Alice Faye, and this there's a big backstory behind her making this picture as her comeback film, really. But I do want to point out in this scene a little gaffe. You don't see Preminger make them too often, but watch the clock on the wall in this scene, because it's a very mobile clock, as you'll just notice.
Maybe they borrowed it from the set of Laura where he hid the gun.
It could be. But you'll notice that it's everywhere in this scene.
Well, you know, as you've said before, he likes the 3 columns. I guess the clock is a column.
It could be that he just thought he could not resist that composition of putting that 10 past 10 between them, and that clock just moved. And as you can see, there isn't another one behind her on this side of the room, so it just jumped around. Anne Revere was a marvelous character actress. I mentioned that she played everybody's mother, even though she wasn't really any older than the people whose mother she was playing. She was Jennifer Jones's mom, Liz Taylor's mother, John Garfield, Gregory Peck, Montgomery Clift. In fact, the same year she made this picture, she would end up winning a Best Supporting Actress Oscar for playing Liz Taylor's mother in National Velvet.
I think he's right. But how can he be?
Now, Alice Faye was like America's sweetheart, and this really was a big picture for her to make. This was her dramatic comeback in the movies. She had been a chorus girl in New York City, came west in the early 30s to make a picture in Hollywood called George White's Scandals. And in 1935, when Fox Pictures merged with 20th Century, and Darryl Zanuck sort of took over as the head of the studio, it was his idea to make Alice Faye their biggest musical star. And she developed as America's #1 song plugger.
That was an interesting switch.
That was a beautiful
Light to
transition. Yeah, and that's a theme that we're going to see played up throughout this movie. A sort of Alice Faye and Linda Darnell becoming mirror images of each other, and the light and the dark side, and Eric Stanton, played by your father, in the middle of them.
Meeting tonight, featuring the one and only Professor Madley.
Anyway, to very quickly fill in about Alice Faye, she was considered to be the greatest song plugger in the world, according to Irving Berlin and Cole Porter and George Gershwin. And she made all these pictures for Fox in the late 1930s in which she would introduce a song. Very often the song was also the name of the movie, Wake Up and Live, In Old Chicago, You're a Sweetheart. And they would become huge hits. And now here's John Carradine, a very familiar character actor in the movies.
Sorry, I still can't remember. Let me see.
Relax, Professor. We've never met.
You had John Carradine.
My father was at the Pasadena Playhouse with John Carradine, along with my mother, and a lot of other actors, well-known actors, Victor Mature, Robert Preston. In fact, in the 70s, there was a tribute to my father at the Pasadena Playhouse, where he'd been a fundraiser and helped them over the years. And there was a big tribute and the whole auditorium full of people in their new theater. And I spoke, and my uncle, actor Steve Forrest, spoke. And John Carradine was asked to come as an actor who had been at the Pasadena Playhouse at the same time as my father. And I noted to Eddie earlier that, as I recall, he didn't mention my father once when he was at the podium, but I think that's not unusual for actors, especially ones sort of the style of John Carradine.
Well, by the 70s, it was probably a chance for Carradine to...
show up his sons.
Yeah, exactly. And deliver something other than horror movie dialogue, which he was doing pretty regularly by then.
I admire him.
Spirits there. Scotch ancestry.
He's such a great character.
And for those who are unfamiliar, I mean, John Carradine was the beginning of the acting dynasty with his sons David Carradine, Keith Carradine, and Robert Carradine.
There you are, Stella.
And now this little bit of business with with Bickford and Stella is really interesting to set this up. He is going to walk over here and be the first of many to play the jukebox for Stella, and specifically her theme song, which is a tune called Slowly, written specifically for this film by David Raxon, did the music, and Kermit Gell wrote the lyrics. Wonderful little moment there. And this is Dick Hames doing the singing. And this song was calculated to be another hit in the mold of Laura, which Raxon had written for that film.
Check this out.
Yeah, this is a interesting little moment. Originally, I actually have seen the production files for this film, and originally she was supposed to stick that bill in her stocking. And the production code said, we're not allowing that. It was a little too risque.
So the bra is less risque.
So why sticking it in her brassiere is okay, I don't know. But I guess they just felt it was a little bit gratuitous to go to another shot of her where she actually tucks it in, and the dress would have to open a little bit and all that. Even that bit of business with the bill was not allowed in certain parts of the United States. As you may know, there were censor boards all around the country in various regions that had their own specific rules about what you could do and not do. So I think like Pennsylvania and Ohio said, we're not showing her dipping that bill into her brassiere. No way. I always refer to it as a brassiere when I'm watching a 40s movie. You know, it just somehow seems all the more appropriate.
Never mind.
This was really Linda Darnell's breakout in some ways. She had made a lot of movies by this time, but she came to Hollywood when she was really underage. I think when she first got here, she was 15 years old or something, and she was so gorgeous, from Texas as well, and a beauty queen and the whole thing, and obviously a face made for the movies, but she was so young they didn't know exactly what to do with her. And she started making pictures as an ingenue, and really it wasn't until this film that Fox, when she was 21, that Fox felt comfortable really exploiting her as a woman, which would lead to some problems in the production of this film.
Return to tell you how happy they are in their eternal reward.
Now here you're going to see, as Carradine does his little grifter spiel, Preminger's camera work at its finest. There just weren't a lot of directors who had the courage to do these incredible long takes and to just stage this whole thing. Otto was really amazing in this way. Casting all of these people, all these faces, one shot, have the camera float over the audience. It really is quite exceptional. And I do want to point out an uncredited appearance. Your dad is talking to Adele Jurgens in an uncredited little bit right there. She shows up nowhere on any production list, but that is unquestionably Adele Jurgens.
Practically everything you left her. The bonds, the orange groves. You can't understand how she could have trusted that man. That man, John Mark.
This film was made in 1945, a few years before Nightmare Alley, which is another Fox film that delves into this whole spook show racket and phony mentalists and all that. And it's just a nice little bit of business here.
But that's why the sister is suspect.
Oh, of course. And it is funny. Watch for the what the wardrobe department does with these two, where they outfit them clearly as sisters through the entire movie. They dress almost identically, but with enough difference between them that they clearly are distinguished as very separate personalities.
It was awful mysterious how he knew everything.
I love that, how Stanton, I'm always tempted to say your dad, how he just takes that coat away from Percy Kilbride and puts it on her, and he's just doting.
Your horoscope's up there.
I'd like a drink.
And he's a pretty cocky character, because he was just going to usher her right upstairs to his room. Your horoscope's up there. And of course, here we go again with Preminger just loving to shoot these complicated scenes with all of these extras and the moving camera and everything in one beautiful gliding shot. This is really what he did brilliantly, better than anybody else. We will notice throughout this scene and the one that follows, there is a very aggressive quality that your dad has in these scenes, which was something that the Breen office was very concerned about. They did not want it to appear that there was any type of sexual coercion going on in his approach to Stella.
Or maybe from Stella.
Well, yeah.
I think they're evenly matched.
Absolutely. And that's really the high point of this film, is watching these two go at each other. That's what people love about these noir films, is that the men and women dish it out and they take it, and she gives as good as she gets throughout.
And you're going to lie awake nights, unable to forget.
What can I do about it?
She's just an absolute bombshell in this movie. And the way Preminger directs her and the use of her eyes is just extraordinary.
So, Eddie, why didn't she continue to be this kind of bombshell into future films over and over? I mean, why isn't she more famous?
Well, it's a good question. Wow, what a great shot.
Ay, ay, ay.
It is amazing. It's this. There's some pretty steamy stuff in this film for the time. Well, Linda Darnell, we'll get into it as we go along. She really was Fox's biggest, knockout bombshell sex goddess of the 40s. She did something very different from the other Fox gals who were big stars like Gene Tierney, and she was a very carnal character. Which is something that she kind of started to rebel against. She really was like the brunette Marilyn Monroe of her time. Before, in the 50s, everybody turned blonde and bouncy and kind of, I don't want to say dim-witted, but that Marilyn act was something very, very different than what Linda Darnell did. She was a very wise, street smart woman. And she really excelled at it. She was a much, much better actress than people gave her credit for, because once she turned 21 and got to play sexy outwardly, that was really how she got typecast. And there was how they got away with that, I have no idea, because he clearly has his hand on her behind in this scene. But
I'm glad to be there.
But they used the coat. I mean, Preminger misses nothing. He used the coat beautifully to cover it up, but there was no mistaking what was going on right there.
Tell me.
I'm from New York. Now you know.
What do you do when you don't tell?
I have to ask you, Susan, what is it like to see your dad on the screen?
I love it. I still love it, and I probably like it more now that I'm older and can not be so tied up to him as a father that I'm got attention with, although I adored him and he was a wonderful father. But now that that's passed by the wayside, I can just appreciate him as an artist, and it's really enjoyable for me to watch these. I also get to see him whenever I want. And I also see my son and my brother in him, two men who I love dearly. And it's fascinating for me to see, oof, this one gives me the uncomfortable feeling.
Why is that?
He's not nice there.
He's a little aggressive.
Yeah.
Yeah, but she slaps him down.
Yeah, she's up to it. But this gets a little bit much. Because usually in movies, he's not doing that. He's more heroic.
You'll go with me.
What on? You got into town with $1 in your pocket. You're a fake.
Oh, you little gyp.
See, this is what marks this as just a classic noir. I mean, these two were kind of destined for each other because they are just going at it. They both want something, and they're not going to stop at anything
And they
to
like
get it.
each other for it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And again, this is a really nice transition that Preminger does here, going from that really dark, sexually aggressive scene to a really bright scene with the church bells ringing in the background. He does that throughout the film on his transitions, and it's really pretty effective.
Yeah, coming.
Professor's waiting. Never felt so good getting out of town, even with the bills all paid.
Don't smile. Your face looks better without it.
This dialogue, I have a feeling, is courtesy of screenwriter I mentioned, Harry Kleiner. And his background with Preminger was that he was Preminger's student at Yale. Between 1938 and 40, Preminger taught a class there in production and direction before he ever made it out to Hollywood. And Harry Kleiner was actually a Russian who grew up in Cuba and spoke Spanish as his first language and ended up somehow moving to Philadelphia and going to medical school, and his family intended for him to be a doctor until he had his first class where he had to dissect something, and the sight of blood made him physically sick. So they realized that he could not have a successful career as a doctor. And when he was at Yale, he started writing, and he wrote a play called A Prayer for the Living, and befriended Otto Preminger, who was his teacher, and lo and behold, Preminger is a guy who doesn't forget, and when he was out in Hollywood at Fox and was making films, and they needed somebody to do this screenplay, he sent for Harry Kleiner and gave him his break in the movies.
Posture. He's got great posture.
Yeah, absolutely. And he could wear a fedora.
He really could.
That's a key thing for anybody in one of these movies.
Maybe that's how he got his rides coming out to Hollywood with his fedora.
Good posture and a fedora will get you a long way in this business.
Wasn't bad looking either.
No, he's a good-looking guy. And it was funny when you were saying how you could see your dad in your uncle or your brother and your son. I will say to the people listening that I can see your dad in you. You definitely have your dad's eyes in his mouth, a certain little twist of the mouth that is, it's interesting. You can see it.
My bus leaves in 15 minutes.
Got a nickel?
Absolutely love that. I mean, this is the challenge. He has waited all night outside the diner for her to show up. She walks in, it's dawn in Pismo Beach. He is broke, and she takes this nickel from him to play the jukebox. And guess what she plays? You had a comment that did he and Linda Darnell stay friends after this?
Well, I don't know that they were actually friends, but I do know that she sent us Christmas cards every year, and I used to like to look through the Christmas cards to see what famous people had sent us Christmas cards. And I always liked hers every year because Santa always had a martini glass, or he was swimming in the martini glass, or maybe it was a champagne glass and he was sort of being bounced around in the bubbles, but it was always a cocktail theme.
Well, beautiful, but in hindsight, Linda had her issues with the cocktails as well. This is a nice little bit of business where he's leaving. This is always crucial in the noir. Which way is life going to take you? And he decides to stay and see his obsession through.
He's definitely obsessed.
But it's interesting that in noir films, guys who had obsessions never actually looked like they were obsessed. They had to hold on to that tough guy exterior, but there's this real vulnerability underneath. And you've addressed that when we've talked about your father, that it was that vulnerable quality that he was able to project even while being so tough that really makes him interesting on screen.
Well, if you look at some of his really famous movies, Best Years of Our Lives and Laura, there's this very cool, calm, collected guy who's vulnerable, and the good directors could get to that. There was something about my father that could turn that over to them. that I am able to see in his pictures and admire about his acting.
Mm-hmm.
I'll marry you, Stella, if that's what you want.
You? You don't kid me.
I'm not kidding.
Last
night I didn't know you. What made you tick?
Mm.
I know you now. I know why I couldn't pull out of here this morning or get on that bus. I can't get away without you, Stella, and I'm not going away without you.
What's in it for me?
You said you wanted that, didn't you? A ring on your finger?
That isn't enough. What goes with it? I want a home.
I'll get it for you.
This is your classic film noir negotiation between the man and the woman.
Where would you get 12 and a half?
Look at him. He's
What's the difference? As long as I get it.
How? You gonna murder
he
somebody?
really uses his eyes.
Mm-hmm, brilliantly. And the other thing about your father, he's a great listener. Not a lot of actors are good listeners. When the other actor is delivering their line, sometimes they can drift a little bit, but he is right there. He zones right in. And this, of course, is I always point out in these movies, the scene that distinguishes the moment, the noir moment in a film. And this, of course, is it, where he has now stepped over the line and he is willing to commit this crime. The audience might not know exactly what the crime is at this point. But I love this, the little deal that they sign here. This is the classic noir guy and the femme fatale sealing the deal with a kiss.
It sure is.
That is a great moment.
There goes that coat.
And again, he goes to the
Now check
right.
out the walking. I once went on a trip with my father across the country, and we went through Canada, and he would make me practice walking like that.
Really?
Yes, he said that it's really important to learn how to walk properly. I can't do it like him.
That's fantastic. And were there any particular mannerisms that were vitally important?
Well, you got to have the posture there.
You got to have that straight posture. And I just think this is great. He's gone from this tawdry beachfront apartment into the church to pursue his little scheme. And who better than Alice Faye to play this part? I mean, sometimes this movie gets criticism because, frankly, of Alice Faye, which I don't understand at all, because I thought it was absolutely brilliant casting to put her in this part.
Look at, she's all in the light.
You will notice that throughout this movie, they find innumerable ways to get her in some kind of radiant light, even to the point when it doesn't exist.
Like an angel, perhaps?
You'll see many instances where Joseph Lachelle, the cinematographer, just bathes her in this halo, even though there is no visible source for this light at all. And I do have to say that Alice Faye was incredibly well-liked by everybody that she worked with. I read somewhere that when they were shooting this film, the crew had a little thing called a laugh a day for Alice Faye, where it was she was just a really good-natured person and always cracking jokes and wanted everybody to be having a good time. And she was so well-liked that because she had chosen this script, specifically, Zanuck had given her like 36 scripts to choose from because she had sort of retired from the screen. She was married in the late 30s to bandleader Tony Martin, and then when they were divorced, she immediately took up with bandleader Phil Harris and was married and had 2 kids, and she wanted to be a mom, and so she retired from the screen and decided after the 2 girls were born and old enough that she could go back to the movies. And as a lot of people who were musical stars of the time did, she wanted to branch out and do something more dramatic, so she wanted a meaty role. And this, interestingly, was the film that she chose after Zanuck had given her like 30-something scripts to choose from. This was the one. And that meaty role thing was a bit of a gag because this was made during the war, and meat was hard to come by. And the story goes that a lot of the guys on the crew were so fond of her that they pitched in their red points to buy her steaks because they just liked her so much.
little things like a game of bowling or a swim.
And you'll notice, again, I cannot talk enough about Preminger's camera work. This is all one long take, shot on location in Orange, California. I mean, he even had this all timed to those kids riding by on the bicycle, and I mean, very,
When they
very...
do this now in pictures, it's a big deal, and the critics will talk about it in the review, and he's doing it all through this picture.
But that's Preminger's whole technique, is he's so subtle about it, he doesn't really draw attention to it. He just does it, and you're just noticing the characters. And it's a weird thing, because some directors do that to draw attention to their technique. I actually think that until you start looking for it, maybe I'm doing Otto a disservice by bringing it up so often, you might not even notice it if I wasn't mentioning it. It is just so smooth.
I don't think I can.
You see?
There was a little gag that Alice Faye had where Preminger really spent most of his time directing movies on the crane, because so many of these things were done with crane shots. And in one of these instances, I don't know, it may have even been this take, she actually just walked off the set while he was up at the top of the crane and came back 5 minutes later. He was just baffled, where did she go? Where did she go? And she comes back 5 minutes later with a little set of toy wings, silver wings, and they made a big production out of bestowing these upon Preminger to commemorate his 500th hour in the air. She gave him a pair of wings like they give pilots.
Oh, that's a good one.
I thought that was pretty funny.
Well, here's to your first scotch.
This is really, I think, a terrific premise. Getting Eric Stanton between these two women. And he wants the harlot and all the carnality that she represents, but in order to win her, he has to seduce the good girl by introducing her to all the sins that she normally resists. And, it's funny, some people find this plot a little schematic, a little preposterous, that, as we'll see as we go along, that June falls for Eric Stanton so quickly. But in fact, it's no faster than Stanton falls for Stella, and nobody has a problem believing that. People, there's this double standard, I think, that gets applied, assuming that the good girl would never get involved with a bad man. But I think that
They do all the time.
Exactly. I think the premise is completely sound. It's just that the challenge in putting it in a movie is to make it seem believable when everything in a script has to happen so damn fast.
Actually, I find it much harder to believe that he fell for Darnell so fast than that she fell for him so fast. Then that may be my bias.
There you go. And this is just beautiful, the way Linda Darnell just glides into this scene. And look at this shot.
Wow.
Ditch him and I'll meet you afterward.
I don't cheat on a date.
Wow. That is just beautiful. And if you notice, this is a really nice little shorthand bit about her character, because in the previous scene where we saw her, she had just dumped that guy. And he had said, that's the last time I'll ever see you. And of course, she's back dancing with him the next time we see him, which is great because it clearly shows that girl casts a spell. Guys just can't stay away from her.
I'm happy. Don't you take too much for granted?
No. One kiss goes a long way with you. You need a guy who'll take it the same way. Who'll give you a marriage with all the trimmings, home and kids. Will walk to church with you every Sunday, listen to your play. Save all your good nights for him.
What makes you think I wanted you to kiss me?
Didn't you?
Now, this is my idea of purgatory. Having been raised a Catholic, I will say this is my image of what I would want purgatory to be like. This is my noir purgatory.
Why?
Well, because it's this little small-town diner. It's got the lighting. It's got everything I would want if I had to spend the rest of eternity lost someplace.
Okay.
This would be it, with Linda Darnell at the counter pouring coffee and the Venetian blind shadows on the wall and all of that. I just think that this to me is like
It's like a Sartre play or something, no exit.
Exactly. This is it. And if you think that Linda looks fairly convincing as a waitress, that may be because she spent a week working in the Fox commissary before making this film.
Uh-huh.
They had a
little method acting, perhaps?
A little method, because she's really good. She's got it down. She knows how to pour the coffee out of the side of the coffee pot and not out of the spout, you know. She's got it down.
Let's get the lunch.
Like it?
Get me some hash, good and brown.
Note the
Some
watch.
Yeah, the watch figures.
You get this last night?
Wait till we're married and then ask me. Till then, I don't have to tell you a thing.
We're as good as married.
Hmm.
You're dropping out of circulation.
It's all in the eyes. These two trading darts with the eyes is just great.
Miss Mills.
I have a son and a grandson with those eyes.
How good I'm getting.
You will in a couple of days.
Okay, couple days, but that don't mean forever.
He's a baby, but I can tell.
Morning, Mr. Judd.
Good morning, Stella.
See, there's what I mean about the side of the coffee pot. And it's just nice at the end that they brought Charles Bickford back for that little bit of business, which is really important to build his character up for the way the movie is going.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm leaving tomorrow, and I wanted to say goodbye.
Goodbye, Mr. Stanton. We were just going to pick up a few things. Can we take you anywhere?
Any way you say.
Again, the art direction in this is really great because the way they just manage to convey so much light every time Alice Faye comes on the scene is just brilliant. And then pay real attention here in this driving scene. It's really very neat. It's obviously a process shot, you know, with the rear screen. But when they stop, it's really interesting because they do this beautiful thing where there's a reverse angle and they actually go to the trouble of having a double for Alice Faye on film. You'll see right here when she gets out of the car. He cuts to this reverse angle. And even though that is a process shot in the back, you can see this Alice Faye double walking into the store to maintain the continuity. That's just the kind of thing that Otto Preminger did that made him such a good director. And, you know, his films in this genre are as good as anybody's, but he, later on, once he became a producer, he started to sort of denigrate the films he made at this time. And when there were books written about him, he would always conveniently say, I remember nothing. I remember nothing of that period, you know. And I find that very hard to believe because anybody who puts this much effort into a film clearly has their heart in it. But I just think because these were assigned pictures rather than films that he wanted to make, and his heart was really in being a producer-director, I think he tends to downplay the value of these movies.
Well, he shouldn't.
What was your dad's relationship like with Otto Preminger?
Well, I know he talked about Otto Preminger a lot, and my sister tells me that one night she was in her room and the lights were out, and she can't remember if she was sound asleep or not, but she remembers that Dad came in with the bald guy that she always knew was important when he was around, but she didn't exactly know why. And, well, we know now that it was because he was Otto Preminger. Anyway, they came in, and they had a basket with a blue tent over the top of it. And they came in, and it was Otto Preminger bringing my sister a dachshund. And it was a gift from him to her. And I guess not being particularly cognizant or caring about children's needs, they decided to present it to her in the middle of the night, which to them was probably, you know, still party time. But I think that he admired Otto Preminger, and he always spoke highly of him. And well, apparently they hung out also.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because at this time they had kind of a director-actor relationship that is like, Scorsese and De Niro or something. I mean, he really used your dad a lot in his pictures. They did Laura and Fallen Angel and Daisy Kenyon, Where the Sidewalk Ends. And then later on, I guess, I can't remember exactly when he shot it, but he did...
Satan Bug? Did he do that?
I don't think he did that, but he did In Harm's Way.
In Harm's Way, that's what I was
Harm's Way.
thinking of, yeah. He did.
I just think he really liked that ambiguous quality that your dad was really good at projecting. Like you mentioned earlier, he could play very heroic parts, but he could have this little suspicious quality about him when he was in noir films, and I think that Preminger was really drawn to that and knew exactly how to exploit it.
Could have gone on like this, night after night. Just the two of us. The fire.
This is a really interesting scene to me because this is, what noir is sort of about. It's this very subversive twist on typical Hollywood romantic notions. And here you have this scene that you've seen played out a million times in, romantic movies of the 30s and 40s. And I think Preminger's staging of this scene is even a little bit of a parody of those scenes that, you see Stanton gazing off into this better future, and she's like dreamily envisioning all this stuff that he's talking about. And of course, it's a complete put-on. This being a crime picture and a noir film.
When I was watching this recently, I wondered if it was 100% put on until she fell asleep, and then I can tell. Look at his expression; it clearly was an act.
Yeah,
at least at this point in the movie.
Right, and here's another spectacular process shot. But here is where I think things started to come apart for Alice Faye in terms of this movie, because she had complained. Whether it was during the production or afterwards, I'm not really sure, but she had complained that her screen time was getting whittled away, either by Preminger or by Zanuck. Oh, this whole scene is just fabulous. But I do believe that at the end of that beach scene, there was actually another scene that was shot that was cut out of the film. And specifically, I think it involved Alice Faye singing. Because I do know from the production notes that there is a moment, and I think would actually be brilliant, where they're driving in the car and the song comes on slowly.
Whoa.
Slowly comes on the radio, and which of course is Stella's theme song, and Alice Faye wakes up and says, "I love that song," and she starts singing it, which is really a beautiful, very evocative scene that she's singing the theme song of the woman that he's really in love with. But that did not survive and make it into the final print.
I wonder why. That sounds like a good idea to me.
I'm not really sure whether it was just a time thing or something. I find it hard to believe that, they may have shot these scenes, but I do think that she gets an appropriate amount of screen time in terms of the overall structure of this story. But I just think that Linda Darnell makes such a stunning impression. My God. I mean...
That room.
That room was great. The whole way
no
that scene was...
No Sister Paris, she...
No. The way that whole scene was directed is just absolutely brilliant.
But you got to notice that Doro Folger was there.
Oh,
Dorothy Adams, I should say.
Well, she gets a lot of screen time coming up.
We can talk about her later.
We'll get into her.
Who is this?
June.
That's kind of a diss right there.
That's not good.
Not a good sign.
The concert on the 9 o'clock train will pick you up on the way to the station.
We?
Yes, Clara's going along, too. She had to go to San Francisco anyway to take care of some business, so she thought she might as well do it a week ahead of time. Thank you, Eric. We'll be right over.
Put on your uniform now, Alice.
Boring.
Yeah, he's just. But
not too excited.
Yeah. And now this is really interesting. We're now obviously in San Francisco, and as usual, you get to see the Bay Bridge and not the Golden Gate Bridge. That was always a must in San Francisco movies.
Did they shoot this in San Francisco?
Some of this is actually shot in San Francisco. That last shot, which was really unusual for an introductory shot of the city because, A, it was clearly taken from inside a building, which was odd. Not so odd, this being a Preminger film, the camera was moving. But that was an interesting look at the city from that perspective. And again, I have to point out the way the sisters are outfitted here. It's just brilliant, really. Linking them thematically, but distinguishing them at the same time. There's a really nice little bit of business coming up here. And this is one of the things that I love about screenwriting. Here he is in the bank, in the vault where you go to the safety deposit boxes. And all of a sudden, magically, there's a phone mounted on the bars of this vault. Wonder how common that was at the time. But you will notice that Otto was able to get to the phone without a cut. It was one single camera move. And this is brilliant, how he goes from the thing about the marriage certificate to this shot through the bars that really is very symbolically indicating that there's a trap, that Alice Faye and her sister are falling into a trap. And that this whole marriage thing represented by that ad in the phone book is the way Stanton is going to trap her.
Somebody very important. Might have a great effect on your career.
Who is he?
Wait till you meet him. I told him we'd be over right away.
Go ahead. I want to make a call from here. I'll meet you after the concert.
No, we wouldn't think of it. Eric asked you to go with us.
Oh, thanks, but
Sure, you're going.
You could really see the young Alice Faye in that when she delivered that line. She looks like she's about 16 years old.
With the overbite.
Yeah. Now, this is actually a location shot. That is the Civic Auditorium in San Francisco. Not exactly where they would have the symphony, I don't think, but that was a real shot, whereas this is a recreation of the Civic Auditorium. A pretty accurate recreation of the Civic Auditorium, but clearly this is shot in the studio and not on the street, not on Grove Street in San Francisco.
Why?
Can you think of any better way of getting June out of Walton? As long as she was there, we didn't have a chance.
what chance?
Get married.
Married?
Sure.
Now I have to ask you a question here, Susan. Is it your impression watching this film that June is a virgin? I mean, it's one of those weird things about these movies that, I don't know. I mean, what did you think about that? Has she actually been with a man before?
No.
Yeah, so here she is.
Stella.
Yeah. Half the population of Walton. But the key thing, of course, with Stella is she's learned her lesson and she only lets him go so far until she gets what she wants.
Right.
Sure, Will. Right from the start.
So it's kind of interesting. This is actually what I think is one of the most interesting things about this picture is the depiction of these two women because, of course, June has what Stella wants, which is a home and security, and she has no worries at all. And, of course, Stella has what June wants, which is all of this carnal stuff that she knows nothing about. Yeah. So here is Eric Stanton between these two women trying to execute this little parlay.
Would you say he's in just about every scene? Maybe not this one. Yep.
No, he is. Of course. Oh, absolutely.
I think he's in every scene.
I think you're right. He might actually be in every scene in this movie.
Look at him sitting there on that settee. Looks so uncomfortable.
Well, he is. He is uncomfortable.
He's managing to communicate that.
Well, you know, your dad was one of those actors who was able to communicate quite a bit without doing much, which is vital, I think, for a film actor. He does not have any of the theatrical stuff that you see, you know, in somebody like a Paul Muni, who once upon a time was considered to be like the ultimate in terms of acting in the early 30s. It was a very histrionic style of acting. But in the 40s, when your dad came to prominence, it was something very different. Movies were made in a different way.
A lot of close-ups.
A lot of close-ups, and you didn't have to work as hard. It was more about what you actually brought to the character yourself. And it really made your dad interesting on screen because he was able to convey a lot of baggage lightly. which is a really good quality, especially for a guy in a noir film,
Yeah.
which he does in the rest of this scene just brilliantly. Oh, using the actor's favorite prop,
What, the cigarette?
the cigarette.
He did smoke much of his acting days. I'd say he stopped in the 60s, maybe the early 60s. And in fact, he was in a picture, I forget the name of it at the moment, but he was in World War II and he was smoking Camels.
Oh,
And they sent him on screen. And
this was probably A Walk in the Sun.
It was
Yeah.
A Walk in the Sun. And they sent him a case for life, a case a month or whatever. He was fixed for cigarettes for life, which is
Yeah,
not such
well,
a good
how great
thing.
is that? Yeah. But this, of course, is such a kind of a disgusting moment in this film.
It's embarrassing.
Yeah, his wedding night, and he ditches June to return to that diner.
Won't you even have a drink with me?
I got a date.
Can I walk you home?
Wow, she is rough.
Said I got a date.
Good night, Stella. Don't forget to lock the door.
Poor Percy Kilbride. Of course, he had been in pictures for just a few years at this point, and we'll get into him a little bit later, but who would have thought that within a few years he would be the most successful actor out of everybody in this movie?
Who, Percy?
Percy Kilbride.
As what?
He's Pa Kettle.
Oh, he was Pa Kettle.
He is the man
I thought
who
he
rescued,
looked familiar.
rescued Universal Pictures when they were really struggling. He and Marjorie Main must have made them $10 million. Not that Percy Kilbride ever saw any of it. He just got his standard pay, you know, but he rescued that studio.
At this time, nobody saw any of the cash. My dad certainly didn't. He was on a contract, and he was on a salary from Fox.
The contract was pretty good, though, wasn't it?
It wasn't bad. Plus, he was working for Goldwyn and Fox.
Exactly. They shared.
But by
They shared
today's
the contract,
standards,
right?
he was a big star, and there was no negotiating per picture. It was
Right.
a salary. I mean, he did fine.
She's not so dumb. Well, I'm not a dope either.
At this point, he was into sailboats, and he had 3 at the same time.
Wow. Okay, so
I
he was
guess
doing
the
all right.
salary wasn't that bad.
And of course, that was just a beautiful bit of
It was
business.
great.
The way this whole thing was staged. And then, who's in the shadows? And yeah, Otto Preminger, I got to tell you.
He's a shadow man.
And my respect for his ability as a director just goes up every time I see these films. That scene that just ended, that is going to be, I'm sure people have watched the movie already, so they know, the last appearance of Linda Darnell in this movie. And at some point in the proceedings, we'll talk about her, the decline of her career and her somewhat sad demise. Not somewhat sad demise, her tragic demise. This is a really unusual scene because, this guy has just come home after not spending his wedding night with his wife.
And there's that prim woman looking over matters in the back.
Oh, yeah. I like it. The art direction in this movie is absolutely terrific.
I love it. They often mess up my father's hair. He had this really beautiful curly hair, and it was always plastered down. But when they needed to, they'd muss it up, and to great effect, I think.
Absolutely. I mean, you got to use everything, and acting with your hair is an important part of the process. It's funny. I think some people have a little problem buying this because she is so, has this equanimity about him walking out on their wedding night. But I think part of that just has to do with because it's Alice Faye, and she's, really attractive and an obvious movie star and the whole thing. And so it's like, I'm not buying it. But I suggest, as rude as it may be to do so, that if Anne Revere and Alice Faye had switched roles, I don't know if people would have had such a hard time believing this whole setup, you know. And this is an amazing moment
Look
here.
at that.
The face is just brilliant.
Really good.
And I love the fact that this is the revelation that Stella is dead, and Preminger completely underplays it. And just a static two-shot, and he does not go for any histrionics with the camera or anything, which I think is really amazing. He lets your dad do the work in this scene, and it's really a smart decision.
Mr. Judd, congratulations, Mr. Stanton. I just heard you were married. And my very best wishes to you, Mrs. Stanton.
Thank you.
Well, our church organist certainly surprised us all. Married in San Francisco and not in the church. It certainly saves time, doesn't it?
And it's interesting how they lighten up Charles Bickford in this scene by taking off the hat. It's just kind of obviously he's in a house, so he wouldn't be wearing it, but it's amazing how much that does and how buoyant he seems in this scene, with good reason, when you know the plot. He was quite an accomplished actor, a three-time Oscar nominee for Best Supporting Actor, who, coincidentally, if you believe these stories, got his start in show business when he arrived broke in San Francisco in the early 1900s and was given a job by a compassionate burlesque performer on the old Barbary Coast who took him in and got him a job in the theater there. Had a long career in Hollywood, acted in Cecil B. DeMille's first sound film Dynamite, and worked steadily in B pictures throughout the 1930s. Here you'll see Otto's up on his crane again right here as the car pulls up. This is beautiful direction of this whole scene leading into what's really one of the most intense scenes in this movie. Bickford was attacked by a lion in 1935 when he was making a picture called East of Java, and it took him over a year to recover. He was actually mauled on his face and throat, and was very lucky that it didn't end his life or his career. But in 1941, he announced that he was through playing in second-rate pictures and would not play those nasty heavies in movies any longer.
Hello, Pop.
It's a sad day for Pop. And now fans of Laura will recognize the actress right there, Dorothy Adams, who played Laura's housekeeper in that film. And you had an interesting story about her.
I gasped earlier when I saw Doro because she shows up in a lot of my father's pictures. I don't know how many, but a handful. And she was their best friend and one of maybe three of their closest friends in their life. And they were actors together in their youth, and Doro, which is what we called her, was married to Byron Folger and went by the name Dorothy Adams in pictures. She was in an acting group that my parents were involved in called 18 Actors, theater group, and Pasadena Playhouse before that, and was a character actor for many years into her late years, where she died at the Motion Picture Country home, and was a wonderful, wonderful person. And she played these, like the same in Laura, she's got those eyeballs sticking out, and she plays these sort of pathetic, ignorant, wacky, old maid, high-strung ADD characters. But she was just really lovely and accomplished and warm and funny and kind, and one of my favorite people in my childhood.
Which one did you see last night?
Oh, I can't say if it was them, honest. Can I go?
The tragic demise I referred to in regards to Linda Darnell was that, during the 50s, she continued to make movies, but her star had really fallen by then. And she did, as Susan, you have referenced, she did have a real alcohol problem that worsened over the years. And as is the way in Hollywood, when a beautiful woman starts to get older, she is dismissed. And the pictures became few and far between. And as did her marriages came a lot more commonly than did the movies, and none of them were particularly happy. None of them lasted a long time. And then in the 60s, she was only 41 years old when she was visiting her former secretary in a suburb outside Chicago, and they were all watching one of her first pictures, Stardust, on television. And everybody went to bed, but Linda stayed up smoking a cigarette, and she fell asleep, and the living room caught on fire. And she was, rescued by the firemen, but it was way too late. She died a couple of days later. After that, she had really suffered very serious burns. And it really was a very, very tragic ending to really what was an amazing career, really, and an underrated career, I think.
Sit down.
And now this is Bruce Cabot, who's been lurking around and romancing Stella throughout the movie. Very interesting Hollywood character. Real name, Bruce Jacques-Étienne Pélissier de Boujac, the grandson of the French ambassador to the United States.
Doesn't look like it.
No, he doesn't. But he had a long career in Hollywood, made more than 300 movies, most notably King Kong, one of the co-stars of King Kong, the original.
That's where I recognize him from.
Was it kid gloves?
Certainly. I don't like to mess up any case I'm on. You gave her the watch, didn't you?
No.
You did.
No.
You gave it to her. You gave her the watch, didn't you?
No.
You did. You gave it to her.
This is a pretty shocking scene for the time, and it's really beautifully played. I cannot say enough about the way Preminger directs this scene. And the misdirection and the having the punches off camera, even the picking up of that teddy bear, it's all very effective and very poignant. Bruce Cabot would have his own real-life version of Stella to contend with when he married a Portuguese beauty queen named Francesca de Scafa. She really put him through the ringer. She was quite an intriguing character who got into all kinds of trouble and probably was most famous for being Confidential magazine's hidden connection in Hollywood. I think she ratted out the dirty secrets of more Hollywood actors and actresses than anybody else, because she and Bruce Cabot would mingle in with all the Hollywood crowd, but she was later identified as the source for a lot of the stories that were fed to Confidential magazine in the 1950s.
When Stella was murdered, I was in a motor court just outside of Glen Olden. That's 100 miles away.
How do you know what time Stella was murdered?
The coroner's report says around 4.
Cabot is really effective in this scene. I like the way when the whole thing was being set up, he didn't act shocked or panicky when he realized he was just about to get a beating. When Bickford puts on the gloves and the whole thing, he sort of, as they say, takes it like a man. But it really adds to Preminger's overall depiction of a very nasty and cruel environment here.
Come on, Mr. Atkins, admit it.
No.
Admit you were generous just once.
No.
Admit it.
No.
Mr. Stanton?
Look, you don't try that on me.
I wouldn't think of it. I just happen not to like his face.
Mr. Judd, his alibi is okay. The Lido Motor Court in Glen Olden said he checked in at 2:30.
He's not going to stick around to have a turn himself.
Absolutely not.
I knew his alibi had held up.
You got the watch?
I love that look. He gives that look a lot.
Mm-hmm. He does. You're absolutely
really
right.
uses
That is
that
sort
look.
of, the signature sideways glance that your dad did. It's really effective.
I'm on to the rules. You can't ask me anything or hold me without charges.
You seem to be an expert on loopholes.
Your dad had a really interesting voice. He really didn't sound like anybody else.
Well, he had a fantastic voice. and it could be scary when you're a child. But he was easy to know where he was at any given time. He had an amazing voice. I think he always had that voice, and then he trained it. You know, he was a opera singer, but he didn't let people know that. He was told that he mustn't let people know he was a singer when he first came to Hollywood. He'd get typed with Dennis Day and the other people at the time, but he loved opera, and he planned to be an opera singer until he decided to be an actor, and I'm glad he made the switch. And he would sing opera at home, and but he never let anyone else know.
I actually heard a story, tell me if this is apocryphal or not, that I can't remember the movie now, but there is a film in which your dad sings.
State Fair.
State Fair, that's it. And he's actually dubbed.
I think so.
And he didn't let on that they didn't have to dub his voice because he didn't want.
I've heard that too. I forgot to ask him. I didn't care enough at the time to ask him, but I've always wondered when I've seen it why he didn't sing. He had a great voice. He had a beautiful voice, but he didn't want people to know he could sing.
Not after that girl was murdered.
Interesting.
How can you? Why throw yourself?
I think at the time, if you were a woman, it's okay, like Alice Faye, if you sang, but you don't want to be Nelson Eddy if you're not Nelson Eddy. If you don't want those kind of parts.
No, that's a really good point, and it's very noticeable that the men who did sing, who made a transition, Dick Powell and John Payne and Dennis O'Keefe, they never went back and sang again.
No, John Payne wasn't known as a singer, though. I mean, he was a tough guy. He
Right.
couldn't have sang because then he
Right.
wouldn't have been a tough guy anymore.
Exactly, and once they make that transition,
Yeah.
especially in the 40s when these types of movies, these crime thrillers became really, really popular, it was like, well, I can't blow the gig, I can't go back and sing now. I find that, just to get back to Alice Faye for a second, her presence in this film to me is really symbolic because she really does in these scenes seem to represent this, sunny, old-fashioned Hollywood optimism, as naive as it may be, which is something that, Hollywood really sold in the 1930s. It's like how you were going to survive the Depression and everything. Well, it's going to be, sunny songbirds like Alice Faye are going to pull us out, And it's just interesting. That whole look and attitude and her vibe is just lost in this whole new world of the 40s. It's 1945. There's a world war going on, which I think is a really interesting point about why Clara is suspicious of Stanton from the very beginning. It's because this is not a post-war film, as people refer to a lot of noir movies. It's actually a film made during the war. And this is set during the war. So it's like, what is this guy doing here? I mean,
why isn't he off fighting?
Exactly. This
well,
young,
he was in all his other
able-bodied
movies.
guy. Yeah, exactly. You got to give him a break once in a while.
He's not wearing a uniform.
But that's obviously one of the reasons she's so suspicious. And although they never make direct reference to the war, it's there the whole time.
I didn't realize that.
And it's just
so
interesting.
So what did you say, this is 1945?
This is 1945, and the war had not yet ended. But I think the drama that was played out behind the scenes, where Alice Faye was very disappointed with the way the film turned out because she thought it leaned far too heavily on Linda Darnell. I'm going to hold that thought. Listen to this woman.
I never saw such a rush. Everybody getting married.
Well, it was actually before that. She's saying in and out, every hour, on the hour, and all that. And you're thinking, wow, this is pretty remarkable.
Yeah, I had that same thought.
Yeah, because you clearly think they're checking into some hot sheet hotel where, they're doing some other kind of business.
Kind of sleazy hotel.
It's all they can afford. She's not cracking into the trust fund, But to go back to that thought, the battle between what Alice Faye represented and what Linda Darnell represented, and clearly Linda Darnell wins the battle in reality because Fox didn't really do that much with Alice Faye, and she thought her part was whittled down to, it's obviously not nothing, but she was kind of offended by this movie to the point where she didn't make another film for 16 years after this. She just completely turned her back on Hollywood as a result of this film. And the character that you see Linda Darnell play in this movie became a staple character of Hollywood at this point in the post-war years. She was that,
Jane Russell, Marilyn Monroe.
Oh, yeah. Well, it was Ava Gardner, Rita Hayworth, Joan Bennett, Gloria Graham, the tough dame with a real obvious worldly attitude about her. And so I think you really see that played out not only in this script, but in the behind-the-scenes story that's happening in the making of this film.
Maybe we missed an edition.
Couldn't be in the papers yet. It's too early. There's no reason to be afraid.
Sure. Murder rap.
I like this scene.
Let's just up and go home so he can pin it on me.
I didn't say we ought to go home.
It's great. Zanuck sent memos to Otto Preminger when this film was being made indicating that everybody loved this, but there was great concern about how this last act was going to play out in terms of the way the script was structured and how everything was going to be resolved. And truthfully, what ends up happening is a lot of it falls on your dad's shoulders.
I think that he's great in this scene.
Yeah. I think it's also kind of interesting when this scene begins to note how Alice Faye is sort of inviting the sordidness of it all. She's actually kind of intrigued, like being in this sleazy hotel and what's going to happen, and she's actually kind of excited by it all, which is pretty interesting. You had to be really subtle about that kind of stuff.
Made up a beer.
Are we going to get the elbow? Not really. I have to eat my words on that one.
No, but for a guy who's down to his last few coins, he's not getting the most out of his purchases here.
No. He's too distracted.
Now, it's funny, to show you what kind of a noir head I am, when he goes into the drugstore here and gives that patented Dana Andrews suspicious look, I thought he was going in to get some kind of poison or something.
No.
It's like, I'm going to get rid of her one way or another.
No, he's not that bad, his character.
Well, you don't know. But see, here's the twist in the plot. When he comes back in, I'm feeling that you're kind of wondering, like, what did he buy in the pharmacy?
Well, you are wondering.
Because you just don't know. He goes in there and they make a show of him going in. And the way this whole thing is played and his kind of pensive quality and the lighting, you're not quite sure. And then, of course...
I love this with her.
Oh, yeah. It softens considerably.
Asking. He has to keep getting her stuff because she's naked in there.
Yeah, it's quite amusing. And then I love this when she steps out. This is really
He doesn't look.
Yeah. Yeah, how long have they been married now? He doesn't look. But it is kind of a poignant moment when she does come out of the bathroom, because I think it's perfectly clear that she's been in there crying, and she just looks a little disheveled, and she's been wondering, was this all a horrible mistake?
Thank you.
And this. Help you pass the time.
That's very sweet of you.
I thought it would say it better than I could. And I'm sorry. Just nerves, I guess.
I understand.
Well, all I mean is, there's nothing in it for you chasing around like this. You ought to go home.
No.
Why do you waste your money on a guy like me?
I'm not...
You mentioned earlier, Eddie, that it's 1945 and the war's on. And in case anyone's interested, my father didn't go to the war because by that time he had 2 children. My half-brother and my sister. My brother was probably born in 45. And by the time they took people with 2 children, the war had ended. But he sold war bonds and certainly made up for it on screen.
All I know is that I love you. I love you, Eric. I love you.
And this is the pivot point in the film. This is the big revelation scene. And again, I think this is why Preminger cast your father in these movies, because he can convey what's being conveyed in this scene right here. And this when I first saw this film, I kind of thought this scene didn't work all that well, but now I'm convinced that it's...
And now he's starting to look better to us.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
We realize...
Well, this is a great scene. This is your dad's best scene in the picture, I think. And I find this is one of the things I love about old Hollywood movies. They have now slept together. That is clearly what has happened here. He kisses her, it fades out, she's on the bed, and he's running his mouth because it's now all that tension has been released. I think it's just really fantastic how this plays.
Well,
he's a new man.
Did they sleep together on top of the covers, Eddie?
Well, they can't
Under the coats?
They can't go that far in these old Hollywood movies. But I mean, it is interesting. He's no longer the tight-lipped Eric Stanton. Something has happened, and he's letting all this stuff out, And he's actually revealing who he is to her honestly for the first time in the story.
It all adds up to only one thing, a washout. That's what you're looking at, a complete washout at 30.
30?
Yeah, I'm finished, okay.
You're not finished.
How old do you think he was here for real?
35, 34.
Like I was 1,000,000 years old, with 1,000,000 jobs behind me, and girls.
Because this is a great scene where the cocksure guy is gone and replaced by this very vulnerable character.
There's an interesting quality about my father that I think works in these noir films, and that is that because his background was difficult and that he was poor and he hitchhiked to Hollywood, you've heard that, and when he came to Hollywood, he invented the person that he became. He rarely got an opportunity to be a poor boy from Texas, maybe in a genre noir swamp water, but that was about it. But I think that because he invented himself and became this sort of classy, sophisticated guy in a lot of ways, underneath was this vulnerable poor boy from Texas. And I think directors found a way to get to that.
Perhaps we can find what you want when this is all cleared up.
If it's cleared up.
And now you'll notice that she's got the hat off. Her hair's a little more messed up. She's starting to look a little more like Stella, like a blonde version of Stella at this point. A little more like a potential long-term match for Eric Stanton.
Maybe that's the way it works in your books. But even when I was a kid, I was always being beaten up for something I didn't do. That's when I learned to run away before it was too late.
When I first saw this, my reaction was, this guy didn't get teased when he was a kid. And then I remembered that my father, who was very, very poor and living in Texas, his father was a minister. His mother had 13 children. He was the third born, and he had hand-me-down bad clothes to begin with, and by the time he got them, they'd been through 2 other boys. And he was teased for his clothes and his short pants and his ill-fitting suits. And it was very painful for him, and that really happened to him. And even though he was gorgeous and smart and charming and all those things, and I'm sure he was, he didn't have proper clothes. And in Hollywood later on, you would never find him not dressed.
We were born to tread the earth as angels, to seek out heaven this side of the sky. But they who race alone shall stumble in the dark and fall from grace.
The poem that Alice Faye is reading here is where the title of the movie comes from, Fallen Angel. And it's interesting to wonder as to which character she's actually referring to, or the references in the title of the film. Is it Linda Darnell? Is she the fallen angel, or is perhaps Alice Faye? Or is this really a reference to Eric Stanton himself? A lot of ways to interpret it. The poem would later become a standard gimmick of this screenwriter, Harry Kleiner. This was his first script. I'm certain that the poem, was imposed in the original story. but that look at this.
Whoa.
Yeah, how ingenious is that? And this is a pretty amazing scene for the time. Anyway, every script Harry Kleiner wrote after that, he would include a piece of poetry in the script. This is classic Otto Preminger. So now they're finally in a hotel room. There is only one bed. I point out again the production code edicts that even married people had to sleep in separate beds.
Look how long we're seeing hot.
Yeah, it's just staying up there throughout the night. And this is a wonderful special effect he uses here of the day coming up, which he will repeat in Where the Sidewalk Ends. He does that exact same effect in the station house to indicate the night changing.
The hats are both there side
Oh,
by
yeah.
side.
And then this is remarkable. They're in the same bed. They are sleeping in the same bed in a movie in 1945.
But they are fully clothed.
They are fully clothed, indeed, but they are in the same bed. And now I do want to point out this breakfast scene is really amazing. Watch Otto. He is on top of his game. You would think this is on a soundstage, but watch what he does in this scene. This is actually shot on location, and the camera starts in this diner, and he will, in his incredibly supple, fluid way, get that camera out of the diner and onto the street. It's just beautiful.
You wait here, I'll be right back.
Shine, sir?
I mean, nobody thinks anything of that now, but back then, that was a big deal. And then he pulls out, and then he brings it back in for this wonderful close-up.
Hey, Vic! Mrs. Stanton,
Yes?
can you come with us, please?
I do not think this was actually shot in San Francisco. This is probably in
LA.
or in Orange, where they shot a lot of the other small-town scenes. And I do believe in 1945, the San Francisco police actually were driving black and whites. But watch this shot. This is what I love about Preminger. How good is that?
Wow, that's because he's up on that crane.
That's right. Never get off the crane. Otto never gets off the crane.
But I ain't finished yet.
I mean, so many other directors would have just had the car drive away, no big deal, just cut to another shot. But that was just gorgeous.
Tell us where he is.
And then this is what I was referring to earlier about the halo light they give Alice Faye, no
don't
matter
think-
where she is.
She shouldn't have been unhappy with this.
She gets a lot of screen time.
She gets a lot of screen time, and she's getting to transform.
If he doesn't want to come back, he must have a reason.
What reason could an innocent man have?
Bickford, of course, is great in the scene. I really like that bit of business with scraping the pen along the radiator.
That sound.
You know very little about him. He came into town a total stranger, and within a week he married you. All to his credit, of course. But why this trust in him?
I have a sneaking suspicion that her dissatisfaction with the film probably has less to do with the actual film than with the knowledge that Zanuck was investing a lot more in promoting Linda Darnell after this film came out than he was Alice Faye. I think he had pretty much decided that Alice Faye's career had run its course and that there was something in the wind indicating that it was the Linda Darnell type of gal who was going to go over with the audience at this time much more than Alice Faye, and that, for the very reasons that I discussed earlier. I do want to make a quick point before she exits the movie about Anne Revere. Quite an accomplished actress, and sad to say, she was one of those people who would be burned by the communist blacklisting in Hollywood. She maintained to the bitter end that the Communist Party membership card that was presented in Congress to somehow indicate that she was a member, it was an unsigned card, mind you. She always maintained that it was a plant and that she was set up. She was one of the people named in that first wave of, possible communists in Hollywood. And it pretty much ended
Well, it ended
her
all
career.
their careers.
Quite a number of people.
A number of my parents' friends.
He wanted that money so he could run away with that girl.
But he didn't run away.
And she became an acting teacher, by and large, in the 1950s, and did have a very successful return to Broadway in the 1960s. She was, I I think she was even nominated or won a Tony Award for her performance in Toys in the Attic, Lillian Hellman's Toys in the Attic.
And he isn't guilty. I know he isn't. He only ran away because he had to. He's always had to run away, all his life, even as a child when he was beaten for things he didn't do. But he won't come back because of you. Because you won't give him a chance. You only think the worst of him. Trying to make him guilty of murder when he didn't do it. I tell you, he didn't do it. He didn't do it.
That was Alice's big scene.
Take her home now.
The people who really love noir films tend to be a little rough on the actresses who represent
the goodies,
the good, you know, the bright side and the savior. I mean, she's clearly the savior
Yes,
of
she
Eric
is.
Stanton in this movie.
Redemption.
Not the same, Mr. Judd. I think I'll sell the place.
And because I am obsessed with this kind of thing, I will note that poor Percy Kilbride, after his huge success as Pa Kettle, he died, you know, he was a lifelong bachelor, and he lived near Hollywood Boulevard and would walk on the boulevard every night. That was his big treat. And wouldn't you know it, he ended up getting hit by a car.
You are a ghoul.
Crossing the street on Hollywood Boulevard. Sorry, but and that was how Percy Kilbride's life ended. He was with a companion, and who was killed instantly, and he actually lived for 2 months, but never made it. He could not pull through. Very, very sad end to really an amazing career. I'm not joking. I mean, like a few years, I think his first Pa Kettle movie was in 1947 or something, and for a few years there, I mean, he and Marjorie Main were the biggest thing in Hollywood. It made a fortune for Universal Pictures. And now here's an interesting thing with these two characters who, throughout the film, there's been this little mirroring thing going on between Alice Faye and Linda Darnell, but it's also been happening in a more subtle way with these two characters who both have this obsession for Stella. And I think you're looking at Preminger's composition here as a very conscious, it's almost like a Rorschach block, where these two guys are mirroring each other. And one of them was able to get over his obsession and the other was not.
Why are you working so hard on this case? Maybe you better slow down.
Don't you worry about me. I'm okay. I said I wanted more coffee, Pop. Get it?
I don't worry about you, Mr. Judd. Not anymore.
It's really, again, Preminger's just doing a beautiful job here, keeping Pop in the scene and having him grow more suspicious as Eric Stanton reveals the plot here.
I retired you from the force because you ruined another man's health. Almost killed him in a routine investigation. They would have sent you up if you hadn't had such a good record. That was before you started to enjoy your work too much. Wearing gloves, you know. And what's more, I checked up on it.
That's enough. Save it for the chief. Yeah, Pop.
Now, you remember that watch?
This is a great moment here because right here is where all of a sudden your dad is in cop mode.
It's Mark McPherson.
Exactly. He has suddenly made this transition, and now he's the authority figure suddenly. And you've seen it. Like you say, Mark McPherson and Laura, he'll do this again in a number of pictures, most, strongly, I think, in Where the Sidewalk Ends. It's amazing how he can go from that kind of shifty, suspicious character to this righteous guy, and just like that.
Shall we go? Oh, I came in a police car. They're waiting outside. I thought it would be more convenient.
Sit down. You don't mind if I finish my coffee? You're insane.
Always a classic moment with the villain. Got the drop on you, but I'm going to finish my cup of coffee.
Perhaps this might have been the perfect crime if I hadn't dropped the watch.
Again, this is one of those things where Charles Bickford is just great because he's able to sell this. These scenes are never easy for actors to pull off, where you have to explain plot, be convincing as the villain, you're faced with the demise of all your schemes, and yet you got to have something to sell here, and he's just great.
Day after day for 2 years. Sane, perhaps. Those evenings when she went out with other men while I was waiting for her in the shadow of the porch. Remember 3 nights ago when you brought her home? Kissed her? I was standing there. Insane, perhaps. Night before last when she was out with Atkins.
It looks like Robert Ryan to me in this shot.
He does have a, yeah, you're right, absolutely.
She told me she wouldn't wait any longer for my wife to give me a divorce.
Robert Ryan's more handsome.
Slot machine on the next morning. I hit her. Unfortunately, I didn't remember my ring.
I love that. That is just a...
Oh, it makes Pops mad.
Yeah. And again, it's great how Preminger manages. This is his theatrical background clearly coming into play, how he's able to handle all of this business very efficiently in one take. But I love that little business with the ring, giving the opportunity for Pop to reach out and grab the gun. It's really perfectly done. And of course...
The song!
What a wonderful little bit of business at the end there.
Well, actually, what happened with Laura is that wasn't a famous song. It wasn't intended to be a famous song. Didn't have words or anything.
Correct.
Until after the movie was over.
That is absolutely right.
I felt the same way myself until... Well, you'll find yourself, Pop.
And there's something wonderful about the symmetry of all this, that it's like, that's where I came in.
Yeah.
He walks into Pops at the beginning of the film and walks out at the end, and all of these lives have changed and all this stuff has happened. But there is the happy ending.
Redemption.
Where to?
Home.
Isn't that nice? That's a nice little bit of dialogue that they just say, home. That was good. Hey, Susan, this was fun.
Really fun.
I'm glad that you were able to do this with me.